So let's have a quick overview of the analog dual VCO synth. So the first thing I'm going to do is select an appropriate track. So obviously we've got the 4 analog tracks here. 12 is for cymbals and hats, which I explained earlier. So we're going to select 9 to 11. I'm going to select 9. Double tap the synth page, and then we've got the keyboard icon with the synth dual VCO. So I'm going to select that. I've also got my keyboard on. If you want to turn that off, you can press function and track to turn the light off. Or if you press it again, you can see this LED is lit. That means that I'm able to play the synth across the trigs if the mute mode is not on. So you can see the white keys are on the bottom and the black keys are on the top. So white keys, black keys. So I'm just going to double tap stop because with this synth, the amp is all the way open on default and also these decay times as well. So I'll go through the different parameters and I'll show you how to operate the synth, and then in the next module we'll go through creating a bass patch with this. So the first thing that we're going to do is take a quick look at the balance and also the decays as well, because these are going to get pretty annoying. So I'm just going to turn these down. So if we listen to that. The reason why I'm doing 2 is because 1 is for oscillator 1 and this one's for oscillator 2. So let's put these to around 33. That'll do. And then we've got this balance option here. So if we turn this all the way to the left, we're listening to oscillator 1. So you can hear that decay affects oscillator 1. Now if we want to change the tuning of the synth, we can obviously use the tuning, or we can go to the trig page. And this doesn't work actually if you're on the keyboard mode, but as soon as you put the trigs in, that will change the pitch. So if you're just working on this and you want to change the master tuning, you can do so there. And then the next thing I want to look at is just going over to the right hand side, and you'll hear oscillator 2 is now coming into play. That's because the detuning is -12. So this one is the tuning for oscillator 2. And you'll notice that if I balance these so they're half and half, so they're both playing at 100%. You can hear I can detune the oscillators, or I can create a dual oscillator setup, so put them in like a 5th or a 7th, or I could go -12, put them in octaves, or I could maybe put them at 1 at 3. Create like a rave chord. So what I'm going to do actually is just keep it quite simple and put it at -12. You can also hold function down, and that will allow you to go from 16, 12, +7, 0, -7, -12, -16. So let's go -12 for now. So the tuning on the left will also tune oscillator 2 as well, because it's the master tuning for both oscillators. So yeah, I've already gone over the decays. We'll leave them both at the same for now. And then I just want to quickly talk about the bend. So this is a fixed timing bend. So if I bring this up, you can hear exactly what it's doing. So if you go into the minus, it's bringing it down, then bending it up. It gives you quite a nice snappy sound. And then, I mean, it's quite nice actually if you... just add a little bit of that, and it creates this kind of like wonky aspects to the sound. We've also got overdrive, which is pretty obvious. We all know what that does by now. And then this is the main bit really. So this is where you can change the oscillator waveform setup. So this is the oscillator config, and it goes all the way through. We've got 79 different options there. Obviously, I'm not going to go through all of these, but I've got a very simple way of explaining how to navigate all of the 79 options. So there's a few things to note. So you can see we've got 2 waveforms. At the moment, you can see that they're both sine waves. And if I go over to the next one, you can see they're both sine waves, but they're missing that little square icon at the beginning. Now, I talked about this previously in a previous module. The square, all that means is that the oscillators are resetting every time you trig. If you go right and turn them off, it just means that the starting position of the waveform is going to be different each time. So I know this is really tiny, but I'll try and explain it. So if the square is on, it's always going to start where that square is. If the square is off, the retrig is off, then the starting position could start at any point within that waveform cycle, because it's constantly going round. It's not resetting every time you hit a trig. So you're probably wondering, why would I want to have the option to change it from retrig to no retrig? So a good way of thinking about it is, if you want the waveform to start at the beginning position every single time to make, say, a bass more punchy, more consistent, then you would put retrig on. If you want it to sound more analog sounding, so it's like a little bit looser and it's always changing all the time, then you would turn the retrig off. So it's worth experimenting with. So let's next go through the different oscillator configurations. So I'm going to start with just the waveforms, and I'll talk about what the plus and the FR, sorry, the R, the FM, and the F plus R means as well. So let's just take a look at oscillator 1 first. So you can see I've got this all the way to the left. That's obviously a sine. Then we've got this kind of weird sine saw type thing where it looks kind of like a sine wave, but then it's also a saw as well. And it sounds like a saw. And then I won't go through them next ones because that starts to go into ring modulation FM, which I'll talk about in a second. You can see there we've got sine and that sine saw, and it just keeps changing on the top one. If we go to the right oscillator, or second oscillator, you can see we've got sine. Then we've got this kind of like sine triangle, I think it is. Or is it asymmetric sine? Yeah, that's asymmetric sine, that one. Then we've got triangle. We've got that sine saw. Then we've got a saw. And then it repeats and goes through the next ones. So the way this works is, you can see obviously on the top we've got a sine wave. If I put both these in at the same time. So oscillator 1 is a sine. As you scroll through, you can change oscillator 2. Then you get to 10, and the top one changes now to that sine saw, and you're able to scroll through the bottom ones again. And you can see now we're getting into ring modulation. So this is the first one, ring modulation. And you'll notice that ring modulation sound changes as you change the pitch of the second oscillator. And if I go to oscillator 2, you can hear that the ring modulation doesn't affect oscillator 2, because oscillator 2 is being used to affect oscillator 1. So you can go all the way to the left just for oscillator 1 and completely miss out oscillator 2, not listen to it at all, and still get that ring modulation effect when you detune oscillator 2. So it's the same thing. You've got ring modulation, and then you can scroll through the different waveform setups. Obviously, you're going to get wildly different results depending on what oscillators you use. Sorry, what waveforms you use. Sounds really nice there. So let's look at the next one, which is linear frequency modulation, or FM for short. And with this one, it kind of works the other way. So you'll notice oscillator 1, nothing's being affected with that detune. But if we go to oscillator 2 now only, you can hear that FM modulation happening on oscillator 2 as we detune oscillator 2. So yep, same setup, we've got all these different waveforms, and then we get to the next one, which is FM and ring modulation. So as you can imagine, the way it was before is that ring modulation affects oscillator 1, so to speak, and then the FM affects oscillator 2. So you can hear the FM on that side and the ring modulation on that side. So it's pretty cool. So one oscillator is getting affected with that, and the other one is getting affected with the other modulation. Let's put it at -7. We've got all these different waveforms. I like the sound of that. That's pretty cool. And let's keep going and see what we've got next. So there's nothing after that. You get to 79 and you've gone through all the different waveforms. So it's pretty simple to understand and remember. So you've got the waveforms. You can change the different steps of the waveforms. The plus just means that you add in 2 different waveforms. You can balance them with the balance there. You've also got the retrig on or off for every waveform setup. This is why there's 79 options, because there's just obviously a lot of different combinations, but it's not actually that complicated. And then once you get past the plus, then you get into ring modulation. Same sort of thing. It's like it repeats with ring modulation on. And then you get to FM, and it repeats again with FM option. And then you get to FM plus ring modulation there. So yeah, that's why there's so many. So it's not too complicated to understand. So now we've gone through it and you have a better understanding on how to operate this machine, we're going to now look at creating a bass patch with this. So let's create a bass patch now with the analog dual VCO. So I've got the keyboard on and I've already brought down the decay. And I'm thinking of doing something quite dark like this. So something like that. That could be quite cool for like a techno or electro, probably electro actually. So I might speed it up a bit. So let's try and sequence that to start with. So let's just bring the mute on. So the next thing that I want to do is go for this one. So G, I think, or maybe. Let's go for G, yeah. I'll probably divert from my original plan a little bit, but that's quite cool. Let's go for that. It's quite simple. The next thing I want to do is start to shape this sound. So we're not going to do the filter or the amp just yet. I'm just going to basically look at shaping the sound using the decays here, and then we're also going to look at the waveform setups as well. So let's start with a bit of volume decay. Let's go for 34. Let's add a bit of drive there as well. And let's just scroll through and see what we get. So I'm going to actually leave that at -12. I like that. That's pretty cool. Oh, I like that. Something quite cool and plasticky about that. I like that. So if you find something you like, just remember the number. So let's go for 68. It's a bit weird. I like it. Right, I'll leave it on retrig as well. And we could mess around with the detune. I'm gonna leave it on -12. Just get a nice balance between them. Drive brings out a lot of nice overtones and stuff to it. Let's just shorten that a bit. Now we brought the drive up, it's like bringing up, it's like extending the sound a little bit longer. So it's like when you boost the drive, or if you like have compression on a sound like this, it can bring up the lows, so then it can make it seem like it's a bit longer. So we just need to dial back a little bit on the decays there. That's pretty much it, to be honest, for setting up the synth. It's so easy to work with these because the machines are quite simple. And then what we're going to do next is obviously take a look at the amp and filter. So we're going to start with filter, so we can make it really deep. Add the envelope amount, make it short and snappy, add a bit of length to it. And then it's just a case of finding a sweet spot. So often I will find like a good starting point like that for it, and then I will dial in envelope amount. So I want a bit of that snappiness in it, but not like that though. So it's a little bit more advanced, but I might do a little bit of trig locking. So that one there might just Open up that envelope a little bit more. That's it. Just adds a bit more movement to the sound. That will do for that, yeah. And then let's finally just take a look at the effects, and maybe I'll just sweeten the amp up a little bit more as well. Let's go into the delay. Sixteen's nice, but let's go for ping pong. Add width. Obviously, it's very kind of mushy because we've got a lot of low frequencies coming through. So if it's a bass sound and I've got delay on it, what I'll often do, get rid of those lower frequencies, but then also maybe turn the prominence down a little bit of the top end. Make it sound a little bit more like an old kind of tape delay that's a little bit more kind of like low pass, so take it off the top frequencies. That sounds cool actually, sending the delay into the reverb. Let's just go back to that delay and just turn the reverb off a sec while we tune this in. Dial this in, sorry. So, a lot of people say don't put reverb on bass, but why not? It sounds great. Again, if you're going to do it, just obviously ease up on the low frequencies, take them out. Let's just go back. Add a little bit for those delays as well. And that is pretty much it. So maybe we could try out some slides as well for the 7. So what I'm going to do is turn it off and just add it to that one trig. This one maybe. There we go. That's it. We've got it. It's pretty cool. Very funky. Let's press function. I nearly said funk then. Let's press function. Yes. Yes, funk. So yeah, function and yes. I'm going to save that. Probably end up using it actually. I really liked that. With a bit of a kick drum in there. Let's just try it for a laugh. See if it works. Let's just turn it down a little bit. What am I doing? Wrong one. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Kind of like that. So I'm getting a little bit carried away. Wasn't planning on adding the drums to this, but just wanted to see how it would work in context. Maybe gotta have fun, haven't I? Gotta have fun on this course. Can't just be dry all the way through. So yeah, that's cool. I like that. And don't forget, you can always start to play around with your sounds as well. Add a bit more resonance to that, and we've got a bit of a Paranoid London kind of vibe going on. Getting a little bit carried away, but let's last spin. Just to kind of bring in the stuff that we've already done as well. So it feeds into that and you start to understand how to work everything that we've already learned into what we're doing now. So adding drums, I've only added like really simple drums just to kind of get it cooking. But then I'm going to send it into the effects block. So let's just do that. The reason I want to do that is for the drive. Because I said Paranoid London, I'm instantly thinking, let's smash it into the drive now. And then just turn that bass down a little bit. Can't see me, but I've got a wiggle on right now. I'm wiggling. So your mission this time is to create an analog dual VCO bass. So take notes and ideas from the previous modules and then go ahead and try and create your own bass patch. Maybe you want to start with some of the similar examples of what I've shown you, and then you want to tweak it to make it your own. And obviously come up with your own unique sequence as well and play around with that. If you're feeling more adventurous, obviously add a bass to a previous drum kit if you want to do that, and then you can share it with the group along with a drum kit as well. That's absolutely fine. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing your videos and listening to audio if you want to send it through as an audio. So good luck with this one, and I can't wait to see what you do with it.